Good evening. We're going to call the meeting to order. This is the public board meeting of the Greater Essex County District School Board. For attendance, all the trustees are present tonight. Approval of the agenda. I need a motion. Trustee Cook, Trustee Leclerc, all those in support? That's carried. Thank you. Motion to convene to private session. Trustee Sipcar, Trustee Sheen, all those in support? That's carried. Thank you. We're now going to convene to private session, and we will return to public meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening. We are back into our public session of the school board meeting. We did earlier approve our agenda. And so now we're at the land acknowledgement. And I'm going to invite Trustee Nelson tonight to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chair. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the land honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni, Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Innu, and Métis.
Thank you very much. We have no special orders of the day. Item E, anyone need to declare a conflict of interest for this agenda? Nope, seeing none. F, actions of the private session of the board meeting.
Yep, we have one under new business, G2. May I have a mover? Trustee Leclerc and a seconder, Trustee McKinley. All in favor? Awesome, thank you.
Approval of the minutes from the meeting of March 21st. Have someone to move that? Trustee Buckler. Seconder, Trustee Cook. Anything from the minutes? No. All those in support? Any opposed? Oh, there was something wrong with the minutes? Trustee Chin?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. In the minutes about the trustee question period, the statement from the senior administration have some misinformation. I wonder if we can either cancel this or wait for the clarification to because there is misinformation in this part. Trustee question period regarding my question about the books in the library. The response has misinformation. Page 4.
Okay, but what specifically are you referring to?
Oh, for example, the Fun Home, it was stated that we do not have this book in our libraries. In fact, the presentation that was made by a delegation said we had this book. That was inaccurate information. This statement is wrong.
But wait a minute.
Madam Chair, point of order.
I'm just going there.
Okay.
So this is a reflection of what was said at the meeting. It's not whether or not it's right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
so this is what was said at the meeting.
Yeah.
So that has to stay the way it is in the minutes.
Yes, I understand. My purpose is that the record should reflect the fact, and if I cannot ask here, I can raise the issue in the new business from the minutes, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So all those in support? Any opposed? Minutes are carried. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. Trustee Chin.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to make clarification regarding those statements, because I got the information that some of the statements are not correct. It's not true, actually. So I don't know what we can do because it's public statement and public records. I don't want the misinformation to be public. Thank you.
I'm not clear on what point is it one sentence? Can you tell us what the sentence is that you have a concern about?
I give you a simple example. As I said, the Fun Home, that book, we clearly have had that in our library. But the superintendent mentioned that we never had it in our libraries. And the delegation, the speaker would give inaccurate information. That was not correct. So I don't want the misinformation to be public, especially in the minutes. We don't know, I don't know why. Usually the minutes are not so detailed, but since it's already written in detail, it's for public to see that. I don't want the misinformation to be provided. That's my purpose. So I I suggest either cancel this or clarify.
So
This
make
part.
you make your point of clarification
Yeah.
as a business arising. You
Yes.
say, I
Yes.
would like to clarify that.
Yeah, I'd like to
that you
clarify.
think something else.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify this information. The fun home, why you said it's never, exist in our libraries. But I have improvement. I have the screenshot. I have also other improvement that it shows it did exist. So it's not the fact.
Okay, so are you asking administration to check that?
Yes, but regarding the minutes, I don't
The
know.
minutes stay.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I want the administration to check it and clarify.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Any other business arising? Okay, moving on to our student presentation. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees, senior administration, and Director Kelly. April is International Earth Month. Many secondary schools are participating in environmental initiatives this month, such as outdoor cleanups and raising awareness on a variety of environmental issues. Last week, Student Senate held its April meeting at Westview Freedom Academy. There are many exciting spring events happening in our schools, such as prom, Relay for Life, multicultural events, spring prep rallies, and more. Student Senate also took the opportunity to review its Student of the Month procedures and Student Trustee Administrative Procedure. Congratulations to the Bell River, Sandwich, and Massey Robotics teams for qualifying for the first Robotics World Championship in Houston, Texas on April 19th to the 22nd. The annual competition and celebration of science, technology, engineering, and math will host 600 teams from around the world. We wish the best of luck to all participating teams. In the coming weeks, Paige and I will be available for presentations to secondary school student parliaments or classes such as civics and careers or leadership. We hope to promote the position of student trustee and inspire students to get involved in leadership and advocacy. We are available for both in-person and Microsoft Teams presentations. Next month, I am excited to attend Asta ACO's annual general meeting along incoming student trustees Sari Mohammed and Colin Pine. We look forward to a weekend filled with professional development and networking with incoming and outgoing student trustees from across the province. Thank you, Director Kelly, for the opportunity to attend these conferences, which are essential for our growth and success as student trustees. As always, Paige and I would like to thank the Board of Trustees, Senior Administration for their support, and Michelle Marcus for her continued guidance and mentorship. And I will pass it off to Paige to read our Student of the Month.
Thank you. The Student of the Month for April is Marissa Mowers, a grade 12 student at Bell River District High School. Marissa is an outstanding role model for the theme of initiative. Marissa is a passionate advocate for social justice, environmental stewardship, anti-racism, and 2S LGBTQIA+ representation. When Marissa seeks an opportunity to create a positive impact, she doesn't wait for that change to happen. She makes that change herself. She has taken the initiative to make change and do good many times during her high school career. For example, Marissa took the lead on Bell River's Eco Team, reviving it and transforming it into a popular and active group. Marissa also went on to head up Bell River's GSA, expanding it to be a safe space for all students. Marissa noticed that some school events were not fully inclusive of all holidays and cultures, so she ran for Prime Minister to make school events inclusive. During her time as a Bell River Noble, Marissa has helped her peers understand what it means to create a welcoming and inclusive school environment. Marissa is also an asset to the GECDSB Student Senate, where she comes to each meeting with unique and innovative ideas and always takes the initiative to see them through. When she graduates this spring, Marissa's positive impact on the school community will not leave with her. Marissa's sense of initiative has inspired her fellow nobles to continue striving toward increased equity and inclusion. Nobles know that they can make the change they want to see. Thank you, Marissa, for your courage, dedication, and inspiration to the Bell River school community. Congratulations, Marissa, for being selected by Student Senate as the Student of the Month for April.
always busy and active. That's good. That's what you're supposed to be doing, and we're very thankful for that. Item J, delegations, we have none. Item K is the speakers list, and we have one person signed up, Mr. J. Palco. Mr. Palco, you've signed up to speak on item M4, which is a report on pages 15 to 20. You're going to be speaking to us about that report? Yep. Okay. You have 5 minutes.
Right there. Is that better? Okay. All right. Anytime? All right. Hello, thank you to the board for the opportunity to speak. I'm Jeremy Pelko. I'm a father of 2. My career has been in design and development engineering for nearly 25 years, and I'm very much involved in the community, including teaching children at my church. A key lesson I've learned is the importance of teamwork and high quality data. That it's worth the effort to acquire it, and that there's something worse than no data, bad data. No data causes a void of information, often filled by hearsay. Hearsay and or bad data, if assumed correct, can be considered actionable, meaning people may make decisions based on it and properly apply resources, cause significant losses, and even hurt relationships. As a foundation to what I'll be sharing, the 2022-26 Good Governance Guide, which this board acknowledges as a useful resource, includes, quote, public education is enabled by and accountable to the Ontario public.
Excuse me, none of that is in the report. Like, can you get to what you've
Yeah,
said?
it's building to it, just so you understand where I'm coming from when I get to it.
Okay, because I don't understand what.
Okay, well, it's a matter of integrity, and I think you'll understand. So
no, we need to understand. No, we have a process, and it has integrity
I have 5 minutes, right?
to speak to what you
I
signed
will
up
be.
for.
I promise I will be. In
Okay.
addition, when it comes to integrity in business, such as with certifications like ISO or Equal Schools, in general, it's a say what you do what you say process. JDEI, Justice, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, sounds good in concept, basically a welcoming, considerate, and collaborative initiative, but the application here appears to be something different. Certain verbal exchanges at previous and recent board meetings revealed a disconnect between what is said and done about JDEI, and a resistance to make good data and answers available. Having the right tools is critically important for data acquisition. The online Destiny library catalog is partially effective, but it doesn't have to be that difficult, especially for those who have a love-hate relationship with their computer. Simply listing the releases is easy to do, new releases, so that people can actually see them without having to dig too deep. And that was done by parents in December of last year. And the board did react promptly, which is very good and excellent teamwork. However, bad books definitely remain and are pending. For example, looking for Alaska, an extremely sexualized, vulgar, and disturbing book, nowhere near appropriate for children, is currently available in 24 schools, 13 elementary and 11 high schools. Trustees Armstrong and Chin have attempted to address this bad data about bad books that have been in and are in our school libraries, with the content disturbing as mentioned. However, in the last meeting,
Point of order. That is not in the report.
Mr.
So-
Palco, I'm sorry, but this is the second time that you've done this. You've signed up to speak about one topic.
what is it that you're looking for that I'm not giving to you right now?
You're supposed to be addressing the specifics of this report. You asked to come and speak on item M4, which is a report,
On JDEI.
not in general, it's a specific report. So it's not open for a general discussion. It's, you signed up to speak to the report and the contents of the report.
Okay, well, it says, it does say in the report that all people should be treated equally and considered.
What is
And
in
inclusive.
the report that you want to bring to
Well,
our
it's
attention?
regarding that comment and what was done previously, how this board does not represent what is
That's
actually
not
said
in
by
this
JDEI.
report.
And that trustee Linda Chin deserves
Point of
an
order.
apology.
Point of
Point
order.
of
This is
order.
not in the report.
Point
and
of
the speaker
order.
needs to be stopped.
Point of order.
Okay, well, I do hope you do improve the online tool, because all you have to do is put on there new releases so people can actually see what books are in there. And when somebody like Linda Chin or Nancy Armstrong, is when they actually present the
Point of
information.
order again. The speaker
That-
is out of order.
I believe this board is out of order. What you did to Linda Chin last meeting is wrong, and you need to address it. Ron LeClaire, you ought to be ashamed for how you treated the woman in public. You ought to be ashamed. So that is for today. Thank you very much.
For the new school to be built in Lakeshore. Someone presenting that to us?
Certainly, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, we are bringing forward today the school space template for the new school in Lakeshore. It is in response to a capital priority that was approved by the Ministry of Education for a 582 pupil place school to be located in Lakeshore. As we've provided to you, the space template is consistent with the capital priority case that was approved by the ministry. There is, it is a very templated formula in the sense that other than the board providing information in terms of the number of rooms for instructional space and the amount of square footage that we gross up for operational space such as hallways and things of that nature, the template generates out the floor space and the maximum floor space. So we're bringing this forward for board approval. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, it's just plugging in the formulas from the ministry to get our floor space. Do we have any questions on the floor space? Trustee Buckler?
I'm just concerned that the ministry at some point needs to update their rule about butts in the seat and how we can build. And building with portables is just not acceptable anymore. And we're going to put this new school in, I know it. And we're going to have 9 portables in the schoolyard, taking up half the schoolyard they're already concerned about not having. So I'm just wondering if we should pressure the ministry to revisit how they do their guidelines. Would that be beneficial? If we sent a letter to the ministry to review their guidelines as to how they address the size of buildings we can put up for our kids. We know what's in our areas. We know what's building, and we're building schools too small.
I would suggest that that's a general issue of concern, and that if you try to suggest that you're not happy with accepting this template of this floor space, then you're jeopardizing your school. So no, but I'm suggesting that that's what you're suggesting, and I don't think that's a good idea. So if the board, if the trustees want to put forward something in general.
That's what I'm suggesting. Asking the ministry to revisit their guidelines.
Do you want to put forward a motion with regard to the template, Trustee Burgess?
I was just hoping we could do it by consensus because I know all my colleagues feel the same. When we're building a new school in
But we all
anybody's
know
area,
that.
it's never big enough.
Yeah, of course we know that. Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. On this, and as a segue to my colleague, I approve the template because that's what we have to work with. But I too know that every new school with the present system we have means that there are portables. And I heard directly from planning consultant and from financial update from the folks at Opsa and all the things that we read about, that there has been a shift in acceptance of long-term portable use. Not as a temporary measure, but indeed as part of the thing. In fact, one of the questions is, well, where do the portables go? Not as like, oh, we're going to only have them here for a little while. No, it's considered that, no, they're new and they're modern now, and this is acceptable. So I think that I'm in support of obviously receiving this. We've received it. It's what we do. But in that receipt, sending a suggestion, to the ministry saying, yeah, we're accepting this and we receive it because these are the parameters we must work within. But we also recognize that it's not serving our communities as well as we should. We do know our communities, and we don't like the long-term use of portables.
So we need a motion on the floor. So we have a recommended motion or a new motion. Who wants to make a motion? Trustee Leclerc? The recommend
as presented.
As presented. And do we have a seconder? I saw something there, but I don't know who. Oh, Trustee Buckler? Okay. All right. This recommendation is that, subject to approval by the Ministry of Education, the board approve the elementary school space template for the new school in Lakeshore. Okay, Trustee Burgess.
I would offer an amendment exactly like that, but with the added words, with the additional recommendation of a letter to the ministry.
You sure you don't want to do that separate?
As a separate motion?
Or even as by consensus? Like, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Get your Lakeshore school first before you complain
Well,
to them.
you know what,
Do you know what
I
I mean?
withdraw my remarks and I will go by consensus and just come back to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions on the motion about approving the template for Lakeshore? All those in support? Any opposed? It's carried. Now, between Trustee Buckler and Burgess, would the trustees like to send a letter to the ministry saying it's about time to update the square footage template so that we're not opening new schools with long-term portables? Is that what we're trying to do? Or something more specific, Trustee Burgess?
Well, maybe not more specific, a bit more vague in a way. The announcement yesterday that we heard also announced that there would be an approved selection of design of schools.
Yep.
The cookie cutter schools going back to the 50s, when you
Yep.
chose, you got a school of 500, okay, you get A, B, or C, and that's it.
Yep.
That doesn't serve us well either. James L. Dunn would never occur, for example, adaptive reuse and other creative things that we've done. But it also doesn't serve us to put schools in that don't have the proper footings, for example, to put an addition on and go up. So there are things that are not included in the build process, space template being one of them, but the recognition of long-term portables. So the letter, I think, needs to say that, of course, we approve the template because that's the snapshot in time, but we can predict that it's going to be inadequate to our needs and that the design and the use of portables needs to really be looked at. So that's, I think, the letter has to capture that somehow, and I would consent to that.
All right. Do we all feel that's appropriate? Okay, by consensus? Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, L2 is the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee report. Someone like to move that? Trustee Cook, supported by somebody, Trustee Leclerc. Any questions on the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee report? Trustee Sipcar?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just had a couple of questions related on page 12, just for reference, I guess. So it's noted that that our board, our administration, had a correspondence with Mr. Lin at the city, who advised that due to major initiatives planned for P2P, there's no capacity to enhance the affordable, or the APP, I forget what it stands for, Affordable Pass for Youth with the public board at this time. So reading this report, I just wanted to get a sense from administration. It said because there's major plans for P2P, is there any sense that there will be some opportunity there, or is it just at this time and they don't know what's going to happen?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. To clarify, the P2P program discounted the affordable passes, it's confusing, under Transit Windsor by 49%, with the funding from P2P covering that. And then the remaining 51% was covered by either the student or potentially the school. What Mr. Lin has indicated is that program that they're piloting at Catholic Central, they're not going to be able to continue to offer for our students under a temporary or another pilot program. He did not indicate what the major initiatives were for P2P, but he did indicate that families can still apply for, if they have a low income family household income, they can still apply through Transit Windsor for a discounted transit pass. It's just, it's not going to be necessarily the 49% reduction, and there's no mechanism for a partnership with another entity unless the school board works directly with Transit Windsor or their family. So there's still a mechanism for students to get a pass, but it has to be based on family income. And they have to apply through Transit Windsor as opposed to allowing the school board to do it through the P2P program, if that sort of makes sense.
Right, so on that, so it didn't, so there's no sense that the city is willing to use any sort of P2P dollars to support that kind of targeted passes for students other than what they've said, but it doesn't seem like that's going to continue. Was there a reason why the pilot program was only at Catholic Central and there was no, I don't know if you're able to know that, but I just thought I'd ask that as well.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I think Catholic Central or the Catholic Board probably had an outreach earlier than our board did. The sense that I got in my discussions is that the school was doing the work of determining the low income threshold that would ordinarily be done by Transit Windsor, and that students that were being approved through that process by the school may not ordinarily have qualified based on the Transit Windsor guidelines. So I think that there were some challenges related to that, coupled with the fact that I think that there's these other major initiatives that it wasn't shared with us in terms of what that was.
Any other questions on the report? Trustee Burgess?
Well, just on that, Madam Chair, if I could, I'm wondering, do we know what the dollar amount is, and have we ever actively solicited either philanthropy or another service organization or some other partner that could subsidize, other than Pathway to Potential? Is there another opportunity to help our students, and in a pilot project or in an ongoing basis? Do we ever solicit philanthropy, a foundation, money, whatever?
I'm not aware that we do. Does anyone else know?
Do we know the dollar amount of the subsidization of the 49%, what it means?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Actually, I tried looking on the website, and other than finding the application, I can't determine what the actual rate is because it's based on family, right? So I can't determine that. I could certainly follow up though with Transit Windsor to get that amount. And at our meeting, they did suggest potentially advocating with City Council. And so that was suggested in conversations with Transit Windsor.
Could that be added to an agenda if there's ever a city and boards liaison committee? That's an agenda item.
I was just going to say that fortunately this past budget that just went by with City Council, that Windsor Transit did get the money that they were asking for, and I think it was $900,000, and they got the full 100%. So when we were sitting with them, they were absolutely awesome with all the information that they shared. And they offered, if we had any other questions, just to contact them. At this time, though, it's so hard. They're short drivers, just like bus kids. And obviously, everything, right, is short of funding. So they're doing the best they can with what they have. Anytime they said that we can advocate for them to have their funds increased via the city, they would appreciate it. But it was a successful time for them just this past time in front of City Council.
Anyone else on the report for the first time? No? Then Trustee Sipkar?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this is a question for the committee members, the trustees, or for admin, but I was wondering about how there's a discussion on the certain programs that are not designated by the board eligible for student transportation. Some are and some aren't. And it said that WES is able to accommodate additional designated programs, but it's dependent on the number of students impacted by the designation. So my question was, if we were to designate something like eSteam, would we bear the impact of that cost? And I assume yes, but would that be something that is within the realm of possibility if we were to consider certain special programs as being available to all students, for example?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The trustees, the board would make those determinations. It's not Wes, that decides which programs will qualify for transportation. The number of students that are impacted would obviously have an impact on their number of buses that may be required, the bus routes that may be required, number of drivers. So there's an operational element to that they may or may not be able to accommodate. They would have to do their rerouting to determine that. I think the challenge too is just generally knowing what we're going to get in the GSN for student transportation versus the projected cost that we have right now developed for the budget. We're going to be in a transportation deficit for 2023-24. So that becomes another added challenge that would have to be considered.
Trustee Cook would like to add comment.
I was just going to say, because we as trustees had talked about that before, right, with the designation, and we brought that up. And I mean, obviously we can do that as trustees, but yes, there's a huge cost to it. The problem is that Bus Kids said that they could do it depending on the numbers. So he threw out a number of 20, it wouldn't be a problem. But if it's like 50 or 100, then it would be a problem because they're really short drivers. So it would cause a problem. And then depending, like you, Superintendent Armstrong said about the different routes and all that kind of stuff, you know, I mean, you have to add on obviously more buses and then different routes, which is probably, again, more drivers. So it's a complicated thing. It's an expensive thing, but it's, you know, I mean, if we had a program that we wanted to look at and it was like 20 kids or 30 kids, that's something that probably, and I'm not, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but would probably be somewhat feasible. And, you know, Bus Kids might be able to do something like that.
But it's also difficult when we're starting out at a deficit position to begin with overall, so that complicates it even more. Anyone else on the report? No. Oh, we do need a motion because this is terminating or dissolving the committee. So Trustee Burgess and Trustee Cook, all those in support? That's carried. Thank you. Reports to be received. M1 is the report of the Director of Education.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. And, oh, go ahead. The months are peeling away, but spring is always an exciting time of the year in schools, and we have many wonderful things to celebrate. Some late March cold, wet weather didn't deter us from acknowledging the commencement of construction at our new K-8 French Immersion School in Tecumseh. Thanks to Trustees Connie Buckler and Julia Burgess for joining us for the unveiling of our roadside sign and reception, which followed at DM Eagle. There's always so much energy this time of year, maybe because we break out all the colors of the rainbow, and as David Maxwell Principal Teresa Hoffman-Sartor shows us, as the vibrant seasonal activities available for students. At Northwood, primary students are priming their green thumbs, planting seeds for some garden color. We are also playing in the dirt at Roseland Public School, but for worm inquiry, though we're not quite sure what questions these young scientists were asking the worms. Here at the board office, we celebrated the start of the season with a little potluck luncheon and said goodbye to winter's representative, Bonhomme, and though we weren't too sad to see him go. On April 2nd, we celebrated World Autism Awareness Day through the board, and staff really got into the spirit of the day at John Campbell. Music Fest returned to the Capitol Theatre here in Windsor after a 3-year absence due to the pandemic. Our school sent hundreds of young musicians to the event and came away with lots of experience and good evaluations. 3 instrumental groups from WCCA seen here all received gold ratings. This is Sahir Sindhu, grade 7 student from Bellwood Public School. She won the gold medal at the recent Windsor-Essex County Science Fair for her project on artificial intelligence, and she's off to the national competition next month. We also had lots of participants at the first robotics and Lego League competitions. Here are some of our students from Hetherington's Robotics Club who put up a display at the Tecumseh Mall to show off their STEM skills to the public. At Gore Hill Public School, they received a generous donation from the Deer Run Church that will help sustain their student nutrition and their snack program. And we are in the middle of our first board-wide student census. It will be available until May 12th, and we encourage families of elementary students to fill it out, along with our secondary school students who will be doing it during school hours. And those are just some of the things happening around the board.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have a question of the director's report? Nope. Then we're moving now to the report of the OPSPA director. Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I didn't know if I'd make it to the meeting, to this part of the meeting. I'm not feeling that well, so I'll just give a verbal report. April 1st, we did meet in Chatham for the Western Regional meeting. Lambton Kent were wonderful hosts to us. It was nice to see Director John Howitt and reconnect with him. That was great. We did have members from all of the regions. So we had Avon Maitland and, of course, Lambton Kent, Blue Water. I was there on behalf of Greater Essex and Thames Valley District School Board. We also look forward to someday having John McGivney School Authority join us. They occasionally do. I hope you're listening, Superintendent Wilcox, because it's always valuable to hear about what the school authority has. It's a different clientele. There are kids, but they're it's good to have them there. The same news as I gave last time as far as the upcoming labor symposium. As far as I know, we still have the same SOs and director and HR professionals attending. I know Trustee Sipkar and I are going. I don't know if anybody else is registered, but I look forward to that, and we'll report back on that. But I think it's going to be good, and we'll have it'll be followed by a board of directors at the end of this month as well that I'll be attending. The AGM registration in Collingwood is open now. I suggest everybody who wants to go book it. There's no easy way of getting there, so if anybody wants to, consider carpooling or whatever, that's always an option. But I do suggest, because it's a popular destination, that's in June. Canadian School Board Association also is registration is open, and that's Banff. Accommodations already booked up. They're still looking for outside areas, so there might be a little bit of travel before you get to the actual meeting. Of course, there was big news yesterday that the province gave, and OPSPA as an organization had an immediate response. Not a lot of consultation prior to the announcement, and some changes in regulation and changes in things that were remarkable enough. You would have thought that there would have been some consultation with all the trustee associations, and there just wasn't. So it caught us off. But if anybody heard President Kathy Abraham this morning on CBC, I think we got one of her last interviews this morning, but I thought she was pretty good about covering what our concerns would be as a provincial organization, and I think she probably echoed some of the ones that we have yet to really discuss and dissect amongst ourselves. And I would be very interested in hearing all of the concerns, etc., because our board of directors meeting is April 28th, and while it wasn't on the agenda originally, there's going to be a whole lot of discussion about what we're even guessing, on what the things. But just for example, the talk of an integrity commissioner being available, for trustees in governance matters, etc. That was welcome, but with integrity commissioners, you want to make sure that you're choosing the integrity commissioner, not one that necessarily that is prescribed by a government. So there's going to be some pushback, I'm going to say, or concerns, or our consultation piece that was missing going forward. So I'd like your opinion on all of those things. There was a large change in the announcement without full details about the surplus school properties and conveyance of those within the preferred entity list and procedure. That's a regulation. So they've already tabled something, but they can change regulation without well, without consultation in a way and without any act. So we'll see where that goes. There's an announcement of some sort of standardized training and support for directors of education and for trustees. That was actually received with mixed, what's the thing, responses. We have standardized kind of training in our Opsa modules, et cetera, and professional development is offered, but it sounded like maybe there were more hoops to jump through. And as elected officials, you ask, I don't know, do councillors have to do that? Do MPs have to do that? Do MPPs have to do that? So is there an assessment piece? Is it I did it and click, it's finished? Or, we don't know. So there's questions. So there's only an allusion to this thing. And then there was also, as I mentioned earlier, an allusion to standardized school designs, and that is problematic because we're trying to plan our communities, with our municipalities and everybody, and what fits in one place doesn't necessarily fit in another. We have different footprints and different commitments to adaptive reuse or smaller footprints or and not just, big, long, sprawling, designs. And so I find that a little, concerning as well. Again, I guess my report is to you, my colleagues, and asking you, when we get the details, if we get the details, I hope there will be more at the Board of Directors, but if you have any concerns, give me the questions so that I can broach the concerns and see if they're, have any answers. And if there is a response, there probably will be even a stronger one collectively. And if Greater Essex has some specifics, I'd like to bring them forward. So please read all the things that we're learning in the news, just like everybody else, But if you have some concerns from the reporting, even, please give them to me. So I would end my report there, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? Okay. The next report is from the Audit Committee, and that is just to advise that I was elected to be chair of the Audit Committee, and Trustee Ron LeClaire was elected to be vice chair. And then we had a presentation from Cynthia Swift, the accountant or our auditor from KPMG, regarding I don't even know what to call it, the ministry's requirement that school boards consolidate our Ontario School Boards Insurance Exchange into our audit, which is against all and every accounting principle on the face of the earth, except in Ontario. So that was by motion of the school board that we have that presentation to the audit committee. So we've complied with that. We haven't come up with any brilliant ideas on how to approach it with the ministry, but we're just in a holding pattern, I guess, on that one. And not like there is lobbying going on at a higher level, and we have put ourselves on notice to the ministry on this as well. So that's just an update from our last audit committee meeting. Are there any questions on that? Yep, Trustee Burgess.
Madam Chair, so it has gone up, other organizations obviously have, their professional credibility and, on the line too, and that would be, of course, COSBO, with a lot of superintendents of business are in that. Have we heard from them in their advocacy to help us in our advocacy? Have we heard back, like, anything?
Not to us specifically, but we do know through our member that there is much discussion going on at that level. I don't know if it's anything to share with the board, but they aren't just rolling over, that's for sure.
Well, it's a weird impasse to be at, because you're actually asking people to go against their ethical code and their professional standards, and on the other hand, the Auditor General's suggesting something that we can't really in good conscience do. So
right.
I
there aren't any good answers right now. and every school board sitting in the same spot. I mean, the only relief we've had so far is that the implementation deadline has been pushed out. Maybe it'll get pushed out some more. You know, now that they have lots of other things to occupy themselves with, maybe they'll put this on the back burner. I mean, it's almost comical because the whole thing is so stupid. You know, that's not very professional of me to say that.
I think it's an apt description.
Yeah. But I mean, and you know, the accountant wasn't able to help us anything more. You know, it is what it is, and it's a problem. Okay. M4 is an update report on diversity, equity, and inclusion, pages 15 to 20. A question? Yep, sure.
Through
Trustee
you, Madam
Nelson?
Chair.
Yeah.
In alignment with our DEI actions, specifically around collaborating and consulting, it's been shared with me by members of the Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Implementation Committee that during meetings they have shared their expertise and apply to board efforts. However, some say that the board hasn't reached out for input when issuing documents and materials to staff, public, parents, and students, such as the discrimination and use of the N-word and the directorate. So considering our actions to enact change, including collaboration and consulting, how do we plan to move forward to utilize the committee?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could, I know Superintendent Kent. I think there's some misinformation there, and perhaps he can clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, just clarification of the way the Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Committee has been working over the past year. We are in our first year of a 5-year implementation plan. The strategy started this year with 6 working committees. Working Committee 1 was actually working on the N-word and the directive around the N-word and the letter that went home to parents. And Working Group 1 has not only, it's led by our Human Rights and Equity Systems Advisor, Roz Salvador, and they have a team of staff members and people from the Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Committee on that working committee. They've met 4 times before February 8th, and they presented to the Implementation Committee on February 8th. I'm not sure if Roz Salvador is on the line now. Madam LeBeuf?
I think Roz is
I
on the
am
line.
here.
Oh, hi, Roz. Maybe you could speak to this a little more since it was your working group.
Absolutely, thank you. So the letter that was mentioned, the letter that went out to families, was initially presented to Working Group 1, and then at the full Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Committee meeting on February 8th, we did present the draft letter at that meeting, and then subsequently sent the draft. It was inside the slide deck. We sent it to the full committee following the meeting. So hopefully that helps clarify that piece with regard to Working Group 1.
Thank you, Roz, and through you, Madam Chair, as well. We know that we want to consult. We want to work with all of our groups, including our Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Implementation Committee. But we'll continue to try to be better, strive to reach out and consult more regularly.
Thank you.
Trustee Sipcar?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So I noticed on page 20 that the developing policy and regulations in short-term and long-term planning is a little bit light. There was only one bullet, whereas the other sections had many. And as the chair of the policy committee, I'd be remiss not to ask about it. The reason why I'm asking is because I've noted that our equity and inclusive education policy, I know is being overhauled or has been for a few years now. And I just wondered if there was an update on there and as it was being reviewed and supposed to be coming back to the policy committee. So I'm just wondering if there's a timeline there.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can begin, and certainly Roz Salvador could probably add to this. The policy is certainly has been challenging. We've been working on it, and Roz has done a lot of work to bring it together. It was reviewed by legal, and it was pared down, and then we do have it out for a review again with legal. So, Roz, I don't know if you would like to add more, but I think that's where we're at with that policy.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I agree. So we've changed it around quite a bit. One of the things that was asked was to make it clearer in terms of who is responsible for doing what. So we've done some work in that regard. We're hoping to get it back soon and be able to get it out for consultation.
Sure, just a supplemental then. So the intention would be to consult with our internal commit or our committees first, and then it would go to policy committee, and then from there to the board at large. That's just so I understand the process of it.
Yes, I believe that would be the process. We would also try posting publicly as well for feedback.
Your microphone, Trustee Hatfield.
Sorry, okay. It's very brief. The only thing I would like to highlight with regard to upcoming events, the week of April 28th is the Workers' Day of Mourning, and I'm very happy to say that our school board has organized an event appropriate for that occasion at 9 a.m. at Riverside High School. There will be a lowering of the flag, and I'm hoping that this year we will meet consistency at all our buildings because it's, I think, very important for us to take that time out to reflect and pay respect to those who may have been injured or lost their lives on their job, and then carrying it on into a week of activities and events to educate our students on the importance of health and safety on the job, and of course remind our staff as well. But the other event that ties into that is on May 2nd at 9 a.m. at Herman Secondary School, and that will be a day of celebration of occupational health and safety. So I'm really glad to see that we're combining the respect of the day for the Workers' Day of Mourning and carrying it into educational and promotional opportunities for health and safety. So I really appreciate that. And then my most important announcement is I think this is the last board meeting for our esteemed superintendent, Mike Wilcox. And on behalf of all the trustees, I would like to thank you for your many years of service here at our board and wish you every success in your new role, which I think will be very exciting, as principal of the John McGivney School Authority. I think that sounds like a wonderful opportunity, and I'm sure you're looking forward to it. Okay, congratulations. Yeah. Yeah. Is he crying? I am. Okay. Oh, to Superintendent Wilcox? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you, Superintendent Wilcox. Actually, I remember the first time I was elected and I know nothing, almost nothing, and I went to your office. You gave me very detailed, explanation, and helped me a lot. So I really appreciate it. So I wish you all the best in the future. Okay, thank you. I won't take your position.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yesterday we heard significant announcements from the province of Ontario. What may have been lost in the shuffle with all those announcements was the actual GSN, which is our Grants for Student Needs, for those that don't know. I was a bit surprised at how little the per child or per student amount was going up. If I'm correct, it's $66 about almost 0.5%. That's not even a full percent, 0.5%. So my question is, can you comment on how this will impact our budget?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we just got it yesterday. Overall, the GSN went up 2.7% provincially. While there were a number of funding announcements, what wasn't chatted about in the announcements was the funding that stopped too. So it seems like it was a bit of moving of buckets of money, for lack of a better word. The EFIS forms, Education Financial Information System, those forms were released yesterday, so I have staff working on that. So we're hopeful by the Operations Finance Committee meeting of May 2nd, thank you, we will have at least a preliminary analysis, high level, in terms of our funding. The anticipation, the expectation is our funding will effectively be flat. There'll be no, we don't anticipate to realize a significant increase at all.
So supplemental to that, so you indicated flat. This year we've operated in the red. We've gone into our reserves to meet our operational needs. With the fact that we're going to come in with flat funding, what is the likelihood that we're going to be able to operate with a balanced budget? And I know it's premature, but I'm just preliminary question here. What is the likelihood that we're going to be able to present a budget that meets all the provincial requirements without the need to go into our accumulated surplus?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. No, it's okay. I'm just trying to think this through. When I say flat, I mean to the extent that we do have increase in enrollment, which we may, we're finalizing those enrollment projections. Obviously, the funding will increase, but so will the cost. So I don't see that we're going to get enough funding to leave us in that surplus position where we have extra funding to do a lot of additional things. In terms of the regulations in the Education Act, we can have a deficit for 23-24 only if we did not have a deficit in the prior two fiscal years. In 21-22, I got to get my years straight, we did have a deficit for compliance purposes, and then for 22-23, right now we plan for revised estimates to have a deficit, which means when we plan this budget, we cannot. So there will be a number of challenging decisions as a board that will have to be made in order to ensure we balance the budget. That being said, maybe we'll be okay in 22-23. You know, we're tracking absenteeism, we're tracking trending rates, you know, against expenses and things of that nature. We don't know what the year-end discount rate will be on employee future benefits, but I don't know that you want to balance or take comfort from a year-end discount rate adjustment either. You have to actually look at your cost structures in terms of how you operate. So, you know, if we're holding the line on expenses, we're being very tight. That's the messaging that's coming across for this fiscal year, so that hopefully maybe we'll be okay, so we have that flexibility in 23-24. But that being said, I don't know that trying to budget on a deficit on a consistent basis is a wise financial decision. You need to adjust your cost structures accordingly, and we will have some difficult decisions to make.
Trustee Nelson?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. April 16th, our education minister announced $180 million to go towards our math programs and financial literacy. And I'm wondering, what would that look like locally for us here, considering priority schools are going to get first priority?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is a somewhat difficult question to answer in light of the fact that Superintendent Armstrong already spoke to the idea that while some things seem to be added, for example, there was a position around mathematics, supervisory officer position around that, but what is actually being taken away is really difficult to determine. As you notice, there is a focus on math, there is a focus on literacy and achievement priorities for the government. But again, it's difficult to tell where some of these things go. And I'll let Superintendent Armstrong spend more of her time on this, looking at the details than I do, but maybe you can glean some better insight, Superintendent Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The math recovery plan is actually a PPF, a Partnership and Priorities Fund. It's actually not part of the GSN. So when it's in the GSN, we actually need to work through the mechanics of EFIS with our staffing and our enrollment, try and sort out what our funding is. When it's a PPF, it's outside the GSN, and the ministry actually does announce the funding. So there are 3 allocations associated with math recovery. The first one is a math lead that needs to be put in place by the board. And the requirement by the ministry is that it has to be a supervisory officer unless you get an exemption from the ministry. So for that purpose, the ministry is, as part of the PPF, is giving the board $166,600, which would cover the salary, not the benefits, the salary of an average benchmark for a supervisory officer. Additionally, the board is receiving another allocation for digital math tools, and that is so that students in grades 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9, all students, would have digital math tools available to them. We're being encouraged to procure them through preferred vendor arrangements that are been arranged with the Ontario Education Collaborative Network. And we are receiving funding of just under $275,000 for that. And then there is a math recovery, a third allocation for school math facilitators. And this allows boards to hire teachers to work with students in grades 3, 6, and 9 in priority schools. Priority schools are identified by the ministry, so I don't know which schools those are yet. And every priority school is supposed to generate funding of 0.2 FTE or full-time equivalent, and it's a funding benchmark of $105,000. We're actually going to be receiving $756,000 under that funding bucket. So that's, I did quick math, I think that's 36 schools, but maybe I might have miscalculated. So in total, that funding is going to work out to about 1.2 million out of the 800 million or whatever they announced, but 180 million. That's about what we're getting right now based on the PPF that was announced yesterday.
Just on that, Madam Chair, with the announcement, and certainly I really appreciate the local context, and we'll learn more at the Finance and Ops, but it's also an Education Committee question. But before we have that, our focus has always been a literacy thing and a math thing. So I just want to ask through you, if I could, to get from the superintendents, we appreciate the announcement of the funding. We appreciate that the province has said this is a priority, but we've had it on the front burner for a while. So, and through pandemic years, which are really hard conditions to learn. So I just would like to hear, if I could, from the superintendents that this isn't going to necessarily shift the positive things that we've been doing, or does the funding come with something other than the new digital math resources? Does it come with something else that is going to change our focus or the way we deliver it?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could. The early reading is a focus. I would like to think that we've already begun that work, though. And the screening for early readers is another piece of that. I don't know if Superintendent Howard or Superintendent Armstrong want to add to more of that. It really is just a bit difficult to see if there's where the funding is, if it's just a bit of a switch. I could be wrong.
So thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Chair, we are a forerunner with the work that we've done in the area of the science of reading. It has been acknowledged, and we're really proud of that work because we worked collaboratively together with special education. It's been an amazing partnership, and I'd like to also thank Mike Wilcox for that. You've been a great partner with that. You'll be missed, Mike. And with that, we're going to continue with that work. We've been very aggressive in addressing the learning with each and every teacher in the primary division, including kindergarten and our early childhood educators. The math plan through the math task force was fantastic, and then the pandemic hit. We were gaining momentum, and a report is coming to the Board of Trustees in the next education meeting about where we were prior to the pandemic, where we were after the pandemic, and what we're doing to keep the momentum moving. One thing that we've learned this year is the plan that we used for the science of reading was exceptionally effective, and we are seeing a greater need in mathematics. So the idea is to mimic the model in reaching every teacher within our system around the plethora of tools that we had. And we've used the digital money to enhance the new junior resource, which is Mathology, and we'll find out at the end of May, the required or the suggested resource for intermediate, and then in the fall we'll be doing primary. So the work, I think, will align. I think we're becoming even more aggressive based on the needs coming out of the pandemic and what we've learned this past year through the science of reading. So I'm delighted to hear that the funding is there to help support it, because it is the work in public education. That's why we exist, is to support students with that.
Thank you. Trustee Sipkar?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I just have the questions about the budget for next year triggered a question for around our budget this year. The timeline for our next revised estimate comes at the next Operation Finance Committee meeting, or my question was really around, are we on track to spending the majority of the deficit that we've approved, or off the top of your head, I know Mr. Mayhew's not here, but just curious how we're trending, and is it positive or negative, in which direction?
Thank you for the question. I didn't mean it that way.
You're
the
welcome.
last report we brought forward was as of February the 28th. So the next report will be for the 3 months ended May 31st, which we would bring forward in June. That being said, absenteeism, the cost of absenteeism continues to be a challenge. Even though we increased the budget for that line item at revised estimates, we're finding we're tracking still about $1 million higher than that amount, so that's problematic. Student transportation continues to be challenging as well. The costs exceed the funding that we get from the ministry. Inflation at, well, now it's 4.3%, so it fell, but the GSN only ever contemplated 2.3% in terms of utility costs and things of that nature, so that continues to pose a problem for us. That being said, we seem to be saving a little bit of money on the teacher salary line item. So it's tight. And again, I don't want to rely on the discount rate assumptions at the end of the year. We don't know that until August, so we've been very clear with people about only ordering what's critical. We're challenging, expenditures. We're trying to be very cautious from that perspective. So I would say it's tight. I don't think we will end up balanced at a zero if things don't change other than the discount rate, but we continue to monitor it.
And as a supplemental to that, you don't see that we would go over the 1% base?
Thank you, no, because we do not want to invite ministry supervision. So we will suspend peak. We will do whatever is necessary to only do critical things. But I have faith we will not go over 1%.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, my question, I want to ask a question representing the parents. I want to know why it's a public board meeting, and if a speaker parent wants to come to speak, I don't see he, say anything, rude or I think he's pretty decent and performed well and actually professional. I don't know why we don't give him the chance to speak in public. Yeah.
It's our policy. Trustee Chin, so it's our policy. It's not my decision or Trustee Cook or anybody else. You need to check the policy with regard to coming to the meetings. So
Can I ask, because it's the public question, I want
But
to,
we have a policy.
what kind of policy?
We have a policy regarding speakers and delegations that come to speak.
How do you,
I'm not going to quote the policy tonight. I don't
Yeah,
have it in front of me. But
yeah, I know.
You need to just check.
Yeah,
the policy.
I think he just speaks several minutes. He haven't touched the topic. How do you know it's away from the topic?
This is not appropriate to debate. We're doing trustee question periods for this meeting. So your question now, I've dealt with that. You have to check the policy with regard to speakers and delegations. Okay, it's a written policy of the board. Now, do you have a?
Can I request explanation to the gentleman?
A point of order?
No, I'm sorry, I've already explained it.
Yeah, you can do that after meeting.
There's a point of order right now.
Okay.
Sorry, Trustee Burgess.
It's a point of order in that, Madam, if somebody doesn't agree with your ruling that something is out of order, can it not be challenged? And we also have rules that we've all agreed to in our bylaws and in our authority book, Roberts, how to do that. And so that order can, finding something out of order can always be challenged. And if it's successful, something can change. And if not, this collective board stands with your order, right?
So Trustee Chin, it's just a matter of following the rules and procedures for how we conduct our meetings. It's all in writing, and you have a copy of all of that.
Yes, I do
So
have
we're
the
not
copy,
gonna
but I don't see
yes,
anything. Yeah.
Every trustee's been provided with a copy of our governing bylaws. Yes. So that's your question. I'm going to move on now. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No. Okay. Next, notices of motion for this meeting. Any notices of motion? No? Okay. Any announcements? Okay. Well, we'll go around the room. Trustee Nelson?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Registration is open for Run for Rocky, which takes place Saturday, August 12th, 10 a.m., starting in Dieppe Gardens in conjunction with Windsor Pride Festival. And then the Amherstburg Freedom Museum has its Freedom Achievers series underway. This Saturday featured activist, artist, and multicultural community storyteller for the City of Windsor, T.J. Travis. And September 23rd will feature meteorologist Gary Archibald, and sign up is on the Amherstburg Freedom Museum website.
Thank you. I'd just like to mention that Kennedy Collegiate's The Little Mermaid Jr. is nearly here. The cast and crew has been working tirelessly for months to prepare this amazing play. The show will be open to members of the community on Friday, April 21st at 7 p.m. and on Saturday, April 22nd at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Tickets will be sold at the door for anyone who's interested in going and watching. Thank you.
Promotions have been great. Yeah. It's 8:15, and I'm happy to announce we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Thank you.